All right, and welcome everybody to the show. I'm so excited to have you all here today because I have a wonderful guest with me who is going to help us dive into the understandings of Mercury retrograde. We did just recently go direct again. We've all heard of Mercury retrograde. We all hear usually only about the negatives, but we're going to talk about the positives, the negatives, what it means, what it's about, what else is happening right now, because we are in a pivotal moment right now of shift. And so I'm very excited to have Kitty Foss here today. She is a storytelling astrologer. She has been doing astrology for 30 plus years. She considers herself, she was very reluctant to embody the name or the title of astrologer. She used it for her own understandings for a long, long time, but now she is embodying and sharing her insights on Instagram, TikTok, as well as Intuition of the Soul, which that one can be found on Facebook. I'll put all the links to her stuff underneath. But her main thing, her main reason, her why, is all about helping us to be the heroes in our own life and our own journey. And one of the best ways for us to embrace that is to understand our foundations. And a lot of that foundation can be found in knowing our astrology and the astrology of what's going on collectively. So all of that being said, Kitty, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here. I'm very excited too.
I'm so excited to have you here. You have such a neat take on the collective energies and what's going on. And so that's why I was very excited to talk to you about Mercury retrograde specifically, like right now, because I know January started off and there's a lot of energies at play and a lot of although there's chaos in 3D, there's also a lot of hope for this year, a lot of light for this year. But January started off with still a lot of energy and planets and moons and things. So kind of what were we dealing with in the first few weeks of January from an astrological point?
And this week is kind of the apex of all of that. We're sitting here on the 18th, taping this.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm old. I called it taping it. So
okay.
It's a very fast-paced energy that came in January, and that's kind of to remove the judgment around it. It's very fast. It was quick. It's been changing. We had a rare retrograde happening during that time, Mars retrograde, which was having us examine our beliefs and really ready to come forward into what does that mean for our beliefs so we can take an action with that. And so that's one reason it started so quickly. And of course, Capricorn begins the year and it's always about the structure. It was an unusual year though, because we have where we set our goals and all of those things we normally do in the beginning of the year. But the astrological piece aligned with that. It doesn't always, our time is kind of a constraint that we have. And though we understand it's a new beginning, it was actually a really big astrological new beginning that happened in the beginning of this year. So that's one reason why it felt magnified 150%. And we are coming out of the season of retrogrades. And maybe before we even go into Mercury, just talk a little bit what a retrograde is, because all planets retrograde. Some are much more rare, Mars being one of them. That's every 27 to 28 months. So, and then it stayed in a sign a very long time. Mars usually spends 5 weeks typically, and it's been 7 months in Gemini by the time it leaves. So that's unusual all by itself. That's very significant. And 2023 is a year of clarity. It's about clarifying, and that's how the year came in. Let's align our beliefs. Let's take a look at what's happening. And that's one reason we're seeing in that kind of 3D, this chaotic energy. Like, what does this mean? And so people that aren't as aware that something else is going on deeper, it's kind of pulling at people. And then there's a big shift coming this year with our planets of transformation. So all of this is lining us up to get ready for this January Aquarian vision. We're really stepping in. We'll have 5 planets in. What is the vision? What is it we want to see in our life? And those of us that are aware are trying to hold we're doing it. We're holding the space of that joy, even though things kind of look, what's happening? We are creating this new earth with holding that space and that. And when we're talking about retrograde, the dreaded Mercury retrograde. Really what happens in a retrograde is planets slow down and they change their orbit. They don't go backwards, but they change the sacred geometry of their orbit. And so just knowing that, we know that it's interacting with the energy. And so in a retrograde, it comes closer to the planet Earth. It comes closer to us. So it bubbles up from internally. So rather than it being such an external, it comes through the soul portal. It comes through whatever other portals you may have signed up for in this lifetime. And I was very honored to take a look at your chart, both of your charts, your rebirth chart and what did we sign up for? What did we change in that circuit? And it's this retrograde brings it forth from inside. And we're about to go with nothing is retrograde. So that means the energy is coming again to us. But we've aligned better every retrograde, especially depending on which planets we're talking about, their energy internally. So that's why, as we've been working on it, 2023 is a really magical year. It really is. We've been with this veil and this, okay, spirit, I don't know what's going on, but let me just plug ahead, and it's moving now. It's clear, it's clearing for us. And that's a big yay in my book.
Oh, me too. That's interesting because that's what my guides have been saying a lot is like, this is the return of the light. It will work in your favor if you're willing to see it as such. And that huge renewal energy that you were talking about makes a lot of sense because I know I was definitely feeling it. Like there's something different about this year. So that veil, like you said, kind of be taking off, coming back into movement is everything I'm getting from my guides too. So I love when what they're saying aligns with what the astrology says.
Right. And my guides, what I channel is they'll tell me, take a look at this, pay attention to this. This is an important aspect. And so that's one reason they said, no, I want you to go daily and give everybody a little look just to have them pay attention. November was a huge year, month, 2022. We were not the same at the end of November. November was like, we saw the door open up, and now we are properly walking through that door. And it's very exciting, but what people also may want to understand, especially now as we come out of retrograde, is not everybody is embracing the change, because what they're picking up is the change, and that's fear for a lot of people. And so the old guard is not going to go gently, let's quote Mr. Dylan Thomas, into that good night, because it doesn't really understand that it is a good night. And so holding the space will help this new earth step more quickly. It's going to come whether we hold the space or not, but it will help us more quickly move to it and perhaps mitigate some of those fear things that are coming forward. But boy, the energy has been like, which is why I loved this is about holding the joy. There is joy. Hold it, magnify it, bring that closer. So.
And what I find interesting too is in respect to what you're saying with that, which piece was it? Like the door opening and walking through the door and this new way of being now challenging some people. Spirit always likes to remind me, and like literally remind me when I'm feeling that fear energy or that trigger. And they're like, remember, this is a new template. This is an unknown frequency. So you need to get to know the frequency. So don't react right away and run away from it into what is known, but that's old, right? So don't go back to what was known if it's not comfortable, but just out of a safety blanket or a security thing, don't go back to that. Step into the new, get to know the new. And when you take the fear off, you might realize, oh, it's not so bad. Or, ooh, I actually like this better. This fits better.
I love that. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's things, it's a new earth, it's a new evolution. And there's a physicalness to this, not only when I talk about the elliptical and the shape of the retrograde that have happened, but we have this 12,000 year cycle that has appeared again in 12,000 years. And so you think back where we were 12,000 years ago, there was a lot of magical things we didn't really know about that were happening on Earth. And there is also an area, and this is astronomy, this is not astrology, that's called the Great Attractor. that the planets and the whole universe has shifted towards. Our sun has shifted. Our physical planets have shifted. Now, I know people would argue, well, we just couldn't measure it before. But the point is we are aware of it now. And that's the space to hold, is the awareness. So we must be ready.
I love that. I love that. So let's start maybe with the more traditional negatives, because we want to end on the positive. So let's go into the kind of negative aspects of Mercury retrograde that maybe people talk about or blame or whatnot. What do you know?
Well, that's a different approach than I have. I'm born Mercury retrograde. Okay. So one of the things is when you are born with a retrograde, you have a different view of the energy of that planet. And so I have a different view always of Mercury retrograde. As a matter of fact, one of the things I laugh about is I tend to have more problems with other people's Mercury retrograde than my own, because I live with that Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde does bother our electronics. It does have direct correlation with solar flares and the Schumann resonance. It happens often through the year, 4 to 5 times, depending on the year. And again, because the orbit is changing, Mercury is an inner planet. It is run by Gemini, and Gemini tends to be a bit cold. So that's how people, what they pick up. They think, oh, Gemini wants you to experience, and it wants you to experience without judgment. So folks, it's really not personal, but it's very hard as human beings not to take it very personally, that energy that steps forward. It's slowing us down. It's wanting us to pay attention what is coming from internally to communicate with us. Mercury is the planet of communication. And communication, we assign the judgment to it. We assign often the good or bad, or we purposely do that. And so that's why there seems to be more sparks, more energy. Our electronics don't work because it's asking us to stop, and we don't volunteer to stop. So it was perfect what you said yesterday. Stop. Sometimes just enjoy. And that's what Mercury slows us down to do. And so that may not be our timeline. So that's one reason why it's very negative for people. And it isn't a time to enter into new things. It isn't a time to try a brand new approach to everything, because it's asking you to pause for a minute and focus your picture, focus the vision of what you have. And so it doesn't last forever. And the thing is that the feeling of Mercury retrograde starts even before the actual point that it changes the course, because it slows down.
Right.
And so that's why we start to feel it. And just like we will live in the shadow of going direct, even all the way for about a week and a half afterwards. So it's not again, time is ours. We draw a picture of it. And what happens is people get absorbed in their thoughts and the repetition, and it becomes something external to blame. Oh, it's the dreaded Mercury retrograde, versus, again, there's our shift in paradigm. Oh, wait a minute, this is a great time for me to slow down. And what other projects can I finish? What other things can I do? It's a very careful and deliberate study of our energy, of our thoughts, of our writing, of our communication. And so that's hard for people, because they may be going 150 miles and all of a sudden it feels like they slam into a wall, but that's kind of purposeful for the universe. Slow down for a minute, refocus the picture. It's a journey, it's not a race. We're our own best teachers during Mercury retrograde. Our own best, what comes to us is to teach us about our communication, about Mercury, the messenger, the message of what is happening at that time. And so, it's a time where we can look at the wisdom versus what isn't working. There are sometimes our communication isn't going to work because it's not supposed to. It's just not supposed to be working. Right. And so it's a time to absorb the ideas, the things that have been bubbling up inside. So
that's beautiful. So, I mean, you mentioned some of the positives then too. What would you say would be like, if there was one takeaway for people to remember about the benefit of Mercury retrograde? What would you say? Like the next one when it comes up, what should people hang on to as an alternate idea than the traditional, like, uh-oh, communication's going to go wrong? What would be the one thing?
The prefix, was a teacher by profession. The prefix re, it's time to rewind, restock, rethink, rewrite, replay. It's as we age, one of the things that is very funny when we were little, I don't want to take a nap. Wouldn't you like somebody to make you take a nap now?
Yes.
There,
Yes.
yes, there are many constraints that we have as adults that we understand as children. We thought they were intrusive, and now we're like, oh, could somebody kind of do that for me? So that would be, what can I what
Mhm.
needs to be redone, reaccepted, re-looked at, re-examined, revisited, redone. We don't have a lot of time to do over. So it's a
Mhm.
time of getting to do over, absorb thoughts and ideas by repetition. I get to revisit them, I get to replay them,
Mhm.
and become my own best teacher.
Mhm.
That's the thing I guess I would say. I'm going to look at how can I be my own best teacher
That's
when
beautiful. Yeah.
before it goes direct again? How can I be my hero? That's one reason why I like people to know their energy. Just like
Mhm.
knowing that I am a Mercury, I do think of things differently when it comes to this. And I'm always like, yay, it's Mercury retrograde. So I'm not going to start anything. What am I going to finish, look at, re-examine?
I love that idea. Because even for some people, if they review whatever it is they're reviewing, they may find that there isn't anything that needs to change. And maybe that can give them even more peace to be in that
Mhm.
energy and be like, yeah, I'm really solid on what I'm wanting here. Right. So
Right,
it might not always be a digging up of something more that needs to be done. It might just be a reaffirmation of what is working, right?
right, right. And spending the time to do that. We're
Mhm.
able during Mercury retrograde to deal with abstractions, to deal with distractions better, because
Yes.
we're being asked to step back and asked to listen more than perhaps we have been listening. I love that. Reaffirmation. I'm going to add that to the
There
list.
you go.
Reaffirm. Yeah.
Perfect. That's perfect. So you mentioned something about coming into a place where most planets or all planets are going to be direct soon, and that Uranus is also just on the heels of Mercury going
hmm
direct.
Yes, it will be on the 22nd of January. It goes direct, and it is the last of the retrograde planets that have been. We had quite a retrograde year last year, and part of that was because Mars went retrograde, an unusual retrograde.
Right.
All planets retrograde. Some of the outer planets, when they're all retrograde at the same time, that means this outer, more cosmic, human, larger picture energy gets very close. And Uranus is one of those planets. And it is the planet of awareness and the planet of chaos at the same time. And
Wow.
so
Isn't that
um,
perfectly paired then with
it
Mercury being
is.
retrograde and Mars? Like, just
Mhm.
throw Uranus in there and mix it all up. It's going to be really revealing.
Yes, and Uranus has been in Taurus, which is not its favorite placement because Taurus is steady. Taurus is wanting us to understand what values are, its second house energy. And so uh, that was a way to tame Uranus in some ways. And so it goes direct also. So that means the awareness now is multiplied to come from outside of us. It's been bubbling up for quite a while inside. And every time we kind of thought we had it, a new came up for Uranus, a new chaos, a new awareness. What do I do with this? Is this what I want to be? And it was lovely paired with Mars because it was having us look at our beliefs. Is there a belief behind this chaos that's causing me suffering? I'm a very big fan of Byron Katie, and that's one of her questions. If I let go of this belief, what suffering do I let go of? To me, that was such an aha in my own life. And so when Uranus goes direct, we now have this wonderful, amazing, creative period of time where energy is coming to us. We can get things done. We aren't asked to actually stop. We're actually asked to jump in and move forward during this time. February promises to be a month of synthesis and a month of really, this whole year is a year of beginnings, but that is a real kickoff for February to take all of these things since 2020 end of 2019 we've been looking at, and now look back and say, just before, look at how far I've come. Now what am I going to do with that? So I'm excited about February
I
very much.
I am so excited to hear that too, because this is going to lead into another statement. Here are my notes for the February energy update, right? So those of you listening now, February energy update has already been recorded. And that was essentially one of the things they were saying, that February is like a kickoff of the year. And I love that, because here again, I had someone ask me a little while ago, why they're like, Ginette, if you're a medium and you channel spirits, why are you talking about astrology? I was talking about a full moon, and stick with what you know. And I was like, fair question, right? All questions, fair question. But this is exactly why astrology, why wouldn't I look at what's happening as well? Because what happens above, what happens in the stars and the alignments has a direct impact on what happens for us, or what is being revealed within us. So if those are already known factors, spirit doesn't have to come in and tell me about them. We can learn direct from someone like you, from astrology sources, of what's going on to help fill in those gaps. Like, it is a direct part of it. It's kind of, to me, astrology, mediumship, spirit, ascension. Astrology is like a core macronutrient. Astrology is like your fats. You need proteins, carbs, water, and fats. You need them all to have a really good system flowing. And your example there, February, with again what they've been giving me, is exactly that. And I had to highlight that, because I think it's so important for people to explore the multiple ways we can gain our information about what's going on, and not to discount what's happening in the planets, because my guides tell me over and over again, as above, so below. As above, so below.
So below, right. And it's a tool. So I become aware of an energy. I've been feeling this, and this is a way it may look for me. And when I know my own chart, this is a place that conversation may happen. So if I know that I have this in a certain house, I'm going to look in that area. It's a tool. It's a pair of glasses, a different focus. It's all of those things. And yeah, because my guides talk to me, but they often talk to me with someone else, something else that comes in, or I follow an amazing medium named Ginette. And it's so, one of my words this year is validating or confirmation. And so it's wonderful when I hear that, because I know that February is big synthesis month. It's taking all these pieces, tying them together. It's this big expansion. It is all of those things. I can't wait to hear the February, because it is exactly what I'm looking at and it's a map, it's a blueprint, it's the tapestry. What you do with it, where you pay attention, what energy gets lit up for you is about your journey. And so kind of having a heads up makes perfect sense to me, and that the guides give us different tools to use. It might not be everybody's tool.
Yeah. And to kind of tangent on this a little bit too, I remember I believe it was actually Jesus came to me one time and really encouraged me to explore much of the written word on the planet already too. And his reason is, he was like, there are so many people on this planet through the ages that have brought through channeled information and left it available in writing, that he was like, read what you're drawn to. There's wisdom there too. Like, not all things need to always be directly channeled or given from spirit. There's wisdom already available on our planet in a very 3D way that we can access. So it's like you said, like, find multiple ways to gain your information, because the extra value of that too is when you can triangulate a knowing, right? So if spirit tells you one thing, the astrology tells you another thing, and then say you happen upon a passage in a book that is a total made up fantasy story, but they're like, Mercury retrograde came in and affected blah, blah, blah. You're like, there's my third point of reference, that Mercury retrograde is happening right now. Or, like, when you can triangulate information, it can be an even greater aha moment in your own hero's journey.
Right. And you're talking about exactly what Mercury retrograde does. Go find what was written, re-examine something that already exists, and then take it to a different level, a different understanding, a different connection, a different network. And what a wonderful age we live in where we can do that. It isn't me in a library and hopefully finding a group of people to talk to. There are people all over the world now that we're talking Florida and Canada right now, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
so on the other coast.
Yeah.
Um, and so that didn't exist. So this is part of this evolutionary piece of this new world for man. We've brought our skills for a reason.
Hmm.
Mercury goes retrograde for a reason, to give us time to connect to those. Otherwise, it would be so fast. We would just be completely, we need the time to synthesize. Our bodies need it physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually to
Hmm.
synthesize information. So I'm very excited that that's what the spirits are telling you about February, because that's what it
Hmm.
feels like. Door opening, big news coming through, able to get going, get things done, and take this information and make connections. It's a great month to network, a great
Hmm.
month to network, to meet new people, try new things, because we've kind of aligned a lot of where we were internally stepping forward.
That's
So,
amazing. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of connecting points. I don't want to give it all away right now, but there's
yeah.
definitely a lot of connecting points in what you're saying. So I find
And we
that
did not compare
fascinating.
notes at
No,
all.
we didn't. We didn't. We didn't. So, with that all being said, if you had, so taking Mercury into account, planets moving direct, Mercury will go retrograde, like you said, a couple more times this year.
Mhm.
But taking where we've come from 2022, even from 2020 through to 2022, into where we are now in this new energy, like you said, a whole astrological shift of energy, what would be, say, one or two of your suggestions or your advice for how people take on this year?
Um, Hold that space for the joy. Really hold it. Be very, very conscious of, regardless of what's going on for me, I have a space I hold. Where is my joy? This new moon coming up is a very important one. It's coming, by the way, in the midst of the last two retrogrades. So we go Mercury, we go into Aquarius on the 20th. On the 21st is our new moon, and on the 22nd is Uranus goes direct. And this is a very important new moon for intention setting because it's in the bigger vision. We haven't been able to set huge visions. So it would be hold the joy and visualize your dreams. Really see the earth you want to participate in, and then take the steps to do that. If I want a peaceful earth, I set time to be peaceful for myself. If I want to see, be careful with the word abundance. Abundance of prosperity. Then what do I do to help support that? Hold the space I want to see, and I will warn you, or assure you, that you will see things that don't seem to fit into that vision, because other people's journeys are a piece of this. And we are the media. What we even participate in the media will get magnified. So if we participate in a lot of the drama, that's what will be magnified. There's a reason why those stories rise to the top, because they get energy from people. So if I can hold a higher space, I can hold that higher space for other energy too. So,
I think that's beautiful. That's great advice for the year. I love it.
and I would ask you, I'd love to hear what you have to say with that question, if that's all
Oh,
right.
yeah, absolutely. In many ways it is similar of like holding that space for joy. 100% agree. That would be one of the things I would say. Um, Another one I would say is for those that either their journey says it's time or they feel it's time, I feel like this would be a year for many people of action, of
Mhm.
action, like stepping into action. Like you said, when you said the door was opening and now we're walking through, I really feel that. So it's like if there's things that people are wanting to really manifest into reality, like it's time to get on the horse and start riding instead of looking at the horse or imagining the horse. It's like the horse is here. Now you can get on.
Mhm.
Right. And so taking the action steps, I really feel is a big thing for this year.
Yeah, living your life doing it
Yes.
versus thinking about it, and
Yeah.
connecting. One of the things I would say for my own personal journey in the last few years is my life is no longer splintered. as much. I'm very aware in a day that I'm stopping to say, oh, there's this, to try and make sure I'm living it as rather than just when I'm in my office or my woo-woo space or talking to friends. Yeah, so I 100% agree with that. That's where
Beautiful.
we are. So
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Kitty.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, your information was just, it was easy to understand, and there's so much there. So I encourage you guys to follow Kitty. I will put all her links at the bottom of everything so you guys can find her. Check out Intuition of the Soul on Facebook, at Kitty Foss on Instagram and TikTok. And yeah, I look forward to having you back on the show.
Well, thank you. I would love to. And
Fabulous.
I'm going to be asking you to come back. This year is a good year for summits for people to get together and have a chance to meet lots of different folks. And again, it's a network year. It's a big
Beautiful.
connection year. So
That's great. I would love to. I'll be there. And so I just want to thank everyone for listening. You guys, thank you so much for joining me on the show as always. I appreciate you. And I will see you guys next week. Have a good one.